How was the casting process for this? How did it lay out, I guess, who was kind of first? Emily, when did you come into it?
Oh, well, as you may or may not know, pilot season is terrible. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you can't remember your own name. And I remember this coming into my inbox, and as we all usually do with emails, you look at something and you're like, oh, I'll deal with that later. But I looked at this and I read the synopsis and I read it immediately on the spot. And I called my agent and I was like, can I play 30? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And I went in for my initial audition and I was like, there's no way I can play 30. They're never gonna cast for this. And the character was a little older at the time, which now, as I know, age never really matters for an audition. You can do whatever you want, really. And I remember it was the first time, probably ever, that I went into an audition in sweats with no makeup on and like a hoodie. And I felt so comfortable, and it was so fun. And as a woman and as an actor in Hollywood, you're always looking like this, and it's terrible, and it's tough. And to be able to go in, and thanks to Jenny and Jason and Annie and everybody and Leslie, like, had the freedom to just be totally gross and comfortable in this role, as you saw, is so fun. So it was great. I think I was one of the last people to be cast. I think Tim and Megalyn and Brittany had all already been cast.
Really?
Okay.
I don't remember the exact timing, but I do remember when we saw Emily come in the first time, we were like, oh.
You could have told me. It saved me a trip to the ER from an EKG, because I was so nervous. Like, okay, all right, you'll get a dream job, and then you'll also move across the country, and you'll leave your family, and everything will be great, and you'll be fine.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Jenny, were there thoughts about how to cast the three sisters? Because they do share DNA, but they don't necessarily look alike. But did you think about that when you were casting?
Not really. I think because ultimately they share one parent, so there was freedom to really go with, who felt right for the role.
Okay. Leslie, talk about kind of shaping the show from the start, because the pilot does set the tone for how the show looks, really everything about it, and being the director's chair, you have to think of those things. What was your planning for what the pilot would be?
Well, when I first read the script, I just really intensely related with all three of the women. Like, I felt like I could relate to, Julia's experience of devoting her life to this very powerful, amazing man, and then realizing, like, oh, he's horrible and has done this terrible thing, and yet I feel this weird pity and sadness for him as well. But he's terrible, so what do I, so I really related with her. I really related with Emily's character, with Roxy, as someone that struggled with, substance abuse and definitely has had the experience of feeling like people only like me for what I can give to them, and not for me. And of course, Megalyn's character, Edie, I really related with, because I didn't come out as a lesbian until I was like 33, so it was, I felt like every time we were working with each girls, and then of course once they were all together, I have two younger sisters, so when we did the three of them, I was like, and this is my whole life. So I mean, really, of course, usually when I approach a piece, I do really think about, how are we going to construct this tone and so on and so forth, but I related so autobiographically, strangely, to the entire project. Although, of course, all of the bits and pieces of it are different and fictionalized. But I did feel just much more confident in this project than I think I have with anything else I've ever worked on. Just because I felt like I could really speak from a place of experience and authority on them. And so one of the things that we talked about in the tone meetings, and I think we talked a little bit about in performance, was the idea that these girls have public personas and then private personas, and then kind of discussing how we were going to shoot when those things, and that those public personas were a bit of, kind of controlled, and then, or they weren't, for obvious reasons.
They were not.
And then kind of making decisions with our brilliant DP, Tim Bellin, based on based on those, who's also shooting this series,
Love Tim Fallon.
based on those ideas, you know, like when do we switch to handheld? When do we use the Steadicam? When do we do dolly? Like how do we express the inner turmoil versus the outer presentation?
So Emily, let's talk about Roxy a little bit. She doesn't seem that unhappy that she might have this new family because we
She's
see
on drugs.
That's my next question. But we see her parents, and they definitely have a kind of a rough relationship.
Yeah.
So she doesn't seem like she's that unhappy that she might have a new family to go to.
Right. She is contrastly very, very excited for this opportunity to have a new father. And she is in a different place than Julia and Edie because they are very, well, we find out Edie maybe not so much, settled in their lives and happy with where they are. And this blows up their world. Whereas Roxy, as Leslie mentioned, loves drama and is very stoked. And I think while we were shooting that scene that you saw where I find out that I'm not related to Timothy Busfield and Victoria Clark, that I think I said shut up like 3 times while we were shooting. I was like, shut up, shut up, I'm so excited. I'm watching the news. Just very stoked because it's a second chance for her.
Yeah.
And she had a really rough go the first time around. And as we will continue to see in season 1, it gets worse.
Okay. Well, and she does have a purse full of pills. So
Yeah.
what
I don't. Look how small mine is.
that's small.
I left mine at home.
But
I like that you looked.
where'd they go? So how much of that plays into the next episodes? Because obviously she has a problem. Julia's aware of it, at least a little bit.
yeah.
So how much does that play into these next episodes beyond this?
We reveal very quickly in episode 102 that Julia is aware that she's like, you know, if I had a purse full of pills, and I'm like, whoa, so you went through my stuff. All right, we'll talk about that later. And you know, we see them coming together more. Roxy is starting to live with Julia now, which I don't know what I can say, and spending a lot more time with her. And the only thing that Roxy really, really wants is to belong somewhere and to have a family. And you hear her say, you know, I've always wanted a sister, and that's number one for her, whether she's high or not. She just wants to be around people all the time because she's lonely, and she comes from this family that are mostly managers and publicists and wranglers than they are parents. And as you see in her house, I mean, it's Roxy land, you know, and it's what her parents want her to be, and it's not who she really is. And so hopefully with the addition of women, which I've found in my life too, in my late 20s, hey, women are amazing to have female, wherever my friend Mallory is, who's here today. Like having female friends is so important, and it's so great, and I think that's gonna be a good thing for Roxy.